I want to welcome you to Control Camp. This is a sync education community, and by sync, I'm talking about sync licensing, which involves placing music in TV, ads, games, etc. In this room, you're going to meet composers, songwriters, supervisors, and executives who operate in this space. You can get your questions answered and you can get your music heard. So if you want more information, you can join the mailing list at controlcamp.com to stay informed. I'm actually going to post our mailing list link into the top of the room in just a second. I'm your host. I'm Eric Campbell. I've been writing music for Sync for over a decade. I have music in lots of TV shows. I've worked on set for major television production. I've written songs for actors and celebrities, and I've placed music for other people on television. So you can see more about my bio and the profile. I really appreciate that you being here, and I hope you find this next couple of hours to be worth your time. We're here for 2 hours, 8 p.m. till about 10 p.m. give or take, just depending on how the conversation goes. And then we do an after party, which is more of our social hour. So, this first 2 hours is very curated and moderated. I either will have a topic that I'm presenting or we'll have a discussion with different people in sync. And so it's a very moderated discussion that you'll be able to take part in. You'll be able to participate, ask questions, contribute, especially today because I'm looking for resources. I'm going to share my resources, and I'm also going to be looking for some for you to share to the room. So it'll be definitely some good back and forth in today's talk. But the after party is all casual. We don't talk music. We just really get to know each other as Control Camp. It's only for Control Camp members, so you have to be following the club to for the room to even show up in your hallway. So if you're not following, hit the little green icon above my picture. It looks like a little house on your phone. Hit that, and then hit the follow sign for Control Camp, and then you'll get notified whenever we do a room, and you'll get access to the after parties as we throw them. All right, let me try and multitask. I want to put I think I tried this before and I wasn't able to do this while I was talking. So let's see. All right, pin a link. I'm going to put the link for. All right, so this link is where you can sign up and join the Control Camp emailing list. This gets you access to all of the rooms that we do as we roll out our new community, which will be coming in a matter of weeks. It'll get you access to that. Briefs like the one I just talked about at the top of this room, you'll get access to pitching sessions where we're looking for music, and you'll get access to listening sessions where we review your music. And if you've been around here, you know that all that is free. I don't charge for listening sessions, and I don't charge for briefs. So if you have what works, it's a good opportunity to get your information placed. And just in case you missed at the top of the room, I am looking for songs that sound like Status Quo, the band Status Quo. They have a song called The Wanderer, and they have another song called Whatever You Want. That's an urgent request that's needed this evening. You could message me or DM me on Instagram if you have a song like that. All right, let's jump into today. I am talking about top online resources for sync placements. So over the years of doing this, I've accumulated so many processes. I'm a very process-oriented person. So many processes around all the different phases and aspects of creating music, finding out what music needs to be created, finding out who to pitch it to, finding out how to find a community, finding places to get feedback. And a lot of these resources the majority of these are online. And I've kind of curated a collection of links and Facebook groups and other resources that have helped me and also help other people that I know in this space. And so I want to use this time to kind of share the resources that I've accumulated, and also to get, we all don't do things the exact same way. So some of you have your own processes, have your own links, and we can all level up by kind of sharing that together. So I'm going to break this talk into 5 or 6 different phases of what I consider, what's needed for getting music and pitching music. So it starts with research, researching music, researching relationships. Then I'm going to talk about networking and relationship building, kind of forming community. I'm going to talk about the music creation process, especially the websites that we use to learn about like home studio setup and music production, mixing, mastering, songwriting, all the things we need to actually create the music. Um, really wanted to talk about file organization, where we store our music, our links, how we organize our metadata, what services we use to let other people stream our music. This is really where I'm going to. I have what I like, but I really want to hear what you all are using, and let's exchange that information. If we have time, I want to get into also what we use. If anybody's into project management like me, and how we actually organize the songs that we pitch, where we store our metadata, how we keep track of what we've pitched, what we've placed, what libraries or agencies they're in. I want to share that information. And then when the actual pitching process, I want to talk about what we use for sounding boards, whether it's listening sessions or music reviews. And finally, what do we use for pitching in terms of organized, automated sync services? I actually I'm kind of opinionated in this area. I actually think that a lot of the links and a lot of the businesses in this space are underdeveloped. And so, I do a lot of direct pitching right now, and I pitch kind of through agencies, but there are companies that that send out briefs that allow you to upload your music, that track your metadata, and are supposed to automate the pitching process. So we're going to have some discussion about how effective or ineffective those are, and kind of my experience and your experiences on how they work. All right, that's a lot to try to cram into a couple of hours, but I'm going to try and do it. And hand raising will be on. With the way I want to do hand raising, and also the back channel is open as I go through each particular phase. So we're going to start talking about researching music. So as I'm talking about the links and the websites that I use, feel free to raise your hand if you want to chime in. If you have experiences using the websites that I'm recommending, or if you have some others that I haven't suggested. And if you can do that, if you don't want to come up on stage, you can definitely back channel. I'm checking the back channel as I'm talking. All right, so let's talk about research. Research. So all music placements. If you are trying to, we say this a lot in this room, if you're trying to get into sync, one of the first places is studying the music that's actually landing on movies, studying the music that's actually landing on TV shows, um, and there's a few different sites that I use to do that research. The very first one that we talk about that you hear me talk about is tunefind.com. So we talk about TuneFind a lot. I'll often say that that's kind of a great place to go um, to research songs. We haven't gone into how we actually do the research. So I want to share with you kind of how I use this. Like TuneFind is actually pretty powerful. So I have it up on my screen while I'm talking. But if you're not familiar with TuneFind, it's TUNEFIND.com. And this site, it lists all, like, shows that are in production right now, that are airing on cable, on television, on streaming services. And for a lot of shows, it will list the music that was used in a recent episode, and it will list, a lot of times it will list the artist that was on that show. It may list the music supervisor that worked on that episode. It might tell you the music library that landed the song on the show. So you can get a lot of research. And so if you're already watching shows and you hear a show that uses music like yours, this is a great place to come. I'm going to show you two different examples in the hip hop space, how this can tell you of a show that may not work for you and how this can give you information of, tell you exactly what to write. So let's say you do hip hop. You're a hip hop artist and you're watching a show like All American. No, let me do something different. Say you're watching one of the Power spinoffs, like there's a show called Power Book 3 because it uses a lot of retro um, classic hip hop. And so you're watching the show, they use all this classic hip hop, and you're like, oh, I do classic hip hop. I got a lot of early '90s, 2000s sample based or loop based hip hop. How do I get myself on the show? So you go to tunefind.com, and at the very top of the screen, there's a search, so you can type in Power Book 3, and even before you finish typing, the list of shows that start with Power come up. So all the Power series, Power Book 2 Ghost, Power Book 3 Raising Kanan, they all show up in the search dialog. So I click on Power Book 3, and I'm immediately looking at season 1, and it's showing me for all 10 episodes. It shows me right away at the top of on the right hand side that there is a music supervisor. Radio is the name of the music supervisor. They actually have a link to that supervisor's page. So you can see all the other shows that this supervisor has worked on. Like, so right away, like, the information is just awesome. The supervisor has worked on Queens, works on Sweet Life, Los Angeles, Resort to Love, Betty, Godfather of Harlem, P Valley, like a lot of really cool shows, and a lot of shows that have urban music. So you know that this supervisor, if this is what you do, this is probably a supervisor you want to possibly build a relationship with or reach out to. And so now one of the things that you'll see when you look at like this show, you look at Power Book and you click on any episode. So like episode 2, and I look at the songs. Immediately I get like a red flag because every song in episode 2 is from a major artist from 2000s or the 90s. So there's Rapture by Blondie, there's Howard Hewitt, Poor Righteous Teachers, D Nice, Snap, like real. So you could tell this is a show that has a big budget. They pay for songs, but they're not, because they have a big budget, they're using songs from publishing companies. So immediately I know that this is probably not a show that I'd be able to get on because they can get the big stuff and they're going for the big stuff. So that's one way that TuneFind can kind of help you narrow your choices down. All right, so immediately I check Power Book 3 off my list. I'm probably not going to get on that show. I'll keep watching it. That's a quick look. I might look at other episodes and see maybe that was just a special episode. A lot of times shows use up their budget in the first couple of episodes. So maybe episode 5, 6, or 7 is different. You might see more independent music towards the end of the season. That's something to check. On the other hand, let me go to a show like All American, another show that if I'm a hip hop artist, I've heard lots of hip hop on All American. So I type in All American on tunefind.com and immediately I see have 4 seasons. I immediately see Whoopsie Daisy, which is Madonna Wade Reed, is the music supervisor. Again, you can go to her profile page on TuneFind and see a bunch of other shows she works on, so you can see if she has a sound or a style, that's consistent across her different shows. And when I click on, let's say this is season 4, which is airing right now. If I click on season 4, I click on any episode. Like, so I click on like episode 2. I immediately see a couple of things that jump out at me. One, I see more independent artists, almost all independent artists. And I see a couple of other things. They actually have a couple of music libraries that submitted songs, and instead of an artist name, the library name is there. So APM Music is listed, Extreme Music is listed. Kano, who is an artist that I know, Marcus Kano, he's a Taxi member, and he has a song in here. Pink Shark Music is another library I'm familiar with, so they have a song on here. Ellen, once again, if you follow her on TikTok, she has a song on here. And I also, just because I personally know that, probably because of Ellen and Kano, they probably got their placements through maybe Tamara Bubbles' agency, because I just remember seeing something on social media. But this is shows you that this supervisor works with indie artists, and you have a couple of strategies you can do here now. You know the actual libraries that have access to the show, so you can hit up libraries. Pink Shark, Extreme. Extreme and APM are a little hard to hit up because they're such big libraries. But you can start a strategy to hit them up. But Pink Shark, I think they have an online, at least a contact information that you can kind of submit, and you might be able to submit online. But also, if you see, because there's some just independent artists here too, you could try to work on a relationship with Madonna Wade Reed to pitch your music if you do urban music that works for this show. So this can work for any show, this whole process. Like I said, we've talked about Tune Found. We haven't talked about exactly how we use it, but that's how I use it. And I just think it's just so the information, it's so much of the information is there. It's not always 100%. It's like Wikipedia. You have to validate the information kind of on your own, but it's a very, very good starting point. All right, so that's my number one slot for hitting up research, and then I balance that with imdb.com. imdb.com is like the resume of the film industry. A lot of you have heard us talk about that as well. There's actually two sites. There's imdb.com, which pretty much any movie, whether it's an indie movie that's aired at a festival or a major movie with distribution, is going to have the information listed there. Television shows too, ratings, you can find all that. So if you're just a casual watcher, I might use imdb.pro just to tell me if a show I see on Netflix is worth my time. I want to look at the ratings on IMDb to kind of give me some information. But the power of IMDb goes beyond ratings. If you look on the main page of the site, on any show you look at, there is a link that says cast and crew. When you click on the cast and crew link, that takes you to everybody that's worked on that show, not just the actors. It tells you about the makeup team. It tells you about who the audio engineer is on the show. It tells you about who is if there's a music supervisor on the show, if there's other people on the music team, like composers who's doing the score. And so if TuneFind doesn't have the music supervisor, IMDb will have it. And in the same way, you can click on that music supervisor and find other shows that they have worked on. Everything on imdb.com is about shows that are out now and shows that were in the past. Now, if you want to know about shows that have not yet been released, then you want to upgrade to imdbpro.com. imdbpro.com. That is a paid service, but it allows you to see shows that are in production, shows that are at different stages of production. Maybe they've been signed but don't have distribution, or maybe they have a release date and they have a music supervisor created. So you can find out, maybe that supervisor that you like, you can find out about if there's a show that they're working on right now that's not out yet. And that's a great basis for an email, like, hey, I'm a hip hop artist. I've had some placements. I see that you are the hip hop. I mean, see, you're the music supervisor for All American, but I also see that you're working on this new show. Is it also hip hop based? I'd love to send you some music. Like, that's a great basis for an email. And every music supervisor we've talked to is open to getting those kinds of emails that are very specific and that show that you've done some research and you're coming to them for something specific, because they all need music. All right, quick pause to say what's up to my man Psychosis. How you doing, dude?
Yo, what's up,
I'm feeling good. How are you?
man? Good. It's the first of the month, man. We should play some Bone Thugs and Harmony or something.
It's the first of the month. My check ain't here yet though, but it's all right.
Right,
It's all
right,
good.
right, right, man. Blessed to be in the place. Shout
Um,
out to everybody in the audience listening. Hopefully, it's another classic, epic, dope room with good.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm starting off with I'm all talking about resources and links that I use. And so I'm just talking right now about how I research shows that how I find my music supervisors to target, how I find shows that are in production and shows that are being developed that are not in production yet. And so just starting with TuneFind and IMDb Pro. Do you use either of those?
Yeah, actually, I use both. I heard you. I just came in when you were at the end of you talking about IMBD Pro, and one of the cool things about if you have a pro account, you can kind of for those of you who are familiar, like if you're an artist, you might be familiar with the concept of like an EPK or electronic press kit. IMBD Pro for myself, I use it to kind of add to my electronic press kit because it could organize like all of the different placements that I've had and kind of show them. And it's just another way to look, more superficial because people who work in the industry, they know IMBD and, they see that and can kind of help validate who you are. Um, TuneFind being a little different, but I do use it. TuneFind kind of has this like community based feel, more similar to like how Genius works for lyrics. If you guys have ever been on Genius, used to be Rap Genius, now it's just called Genius.com, where people can kind of validate and explain lyrics. People can kind of validate on TuneFind too, so it's pretty.
Very, very, yes, exactly. I love TuneFind for that too. And it also does have the tie-in to the music supervisors. I don't know if this is a site upgrade, so I don't know if this is recent or because I don't remember seeing this before, but once a music supervisor is identified as being associated with a show, they actually give that supervisor a profile. So you can click on that supervisor's link and then see all the other shows that they've worked on. So now you've got like two different places, IMDb and TuneFind, that you can really, it's like immediately if you pull up a supervisor, you can see, oh, they do a lot of shows and they use a lot of hip hop. Or you can see if they're all over the place. Maybe they work on rock shows and shows that use different types of music. But just to get that full scope in one space is super super insightful. So those are the three that I use for research. Another two other sites I want to share with you. I've talked about one of these before for music libraries, especially if you're a producer or even if you have songs, if you want to just pitch to music libraries, musiclibraryreport.com is like a consumer reports for music libraries. It's a paid site, but I believe they have a lot of flexible terms. So you can get a membership for as little, I want to say as low as a month, or 3 months, or 6 months, or a full year membership. And definitely stay tuned the next couple of weeks because they usually do a holiday, a Christmas 50% off sale, and that's a good time where a lot of people I know will re-up or will sign up, even if it's just you have a couple of libraries. So a good way to use this is say you go to TuneFind and you were, like I said before, you were going looking at All American, and you're looking and you're seeing what was that? Pink Shark. You see Pink Shark, and you never heard of that library, you never heard of the agency. So a site like Music Library Report, you can go to and you can type in Pink Shark. You can see if other people have used them. Sometimes it'll talk about whether they're, it'll tell you whether they are an exclusive library or a non-exclusive library. Some people might give you insight into some of the deal types so you can get a lot of good information about different libraries to let you know whether you want to try to reach out and submit anything. So all these things combined, TuneFind, IMDb Pro, Music Library Report, lots of good information to help you strategize, who to pitch to and how to pitch to. The last thing that I use personally is a site called iSpot.tv, ispot.tv. That is just for ads. And so when I was trying to transition into working on ads, it was really hard to find, just a site that kind of collected ads and talked about what music is used in the ads. But iSpot TV, um, it it's there is a paid version of it, but I use just the free version. You can just kind of watch lots of different ads. You can listen to them. You can, if if they identify the music in the song, they'll tell you kind of who the music came from. A lot. It's not as curated as some of the other sites, so there's a lot. Sometimes you have to search to find songs where they actually fill in the musician, especially since a lot of ads use custom music. It's hard for some of these sites to know where the music came from. But it's great to study what works for ads, to study what kind of brands use particular sounds. Like if you watch a lot of Google Pixel ads, you get to see that, oh, they have a sound. They like a lot of like kind of retro infused hip hop that's kind of funk driven and has a lot of different loops. Like you can put sounds to particular brands, and that'll also help you strategize what kind of music you might want to make. If you think you could do that and you're like, oh, I could definitely get like a Google Pixel ad, then you're able to kind of focus and do a little more research or find out who's the brand that represents Google. I mean, who's the advertising agency that represents Google, and be able to um, present them with some music. All right, that is what I have had on just researching. Before I switch to talk about networking and building relationships and the links that I use for that, does anybody either have a question or want to comment on any of the sites I just mentioned, or have another site that they use to research either music, music supervisors, to study music, to study music that works in ads or TVs? Anybody has anything they want to contribute there, the hand raising is on, or you can also back channel me any any comments. I feel like there was a hand raised, but it just flashed off. And while I'm doing that, just a quick for anybody who's just in the room, this is Control Camp. The link at the top is how you can get on our mailing list and get access to briefs and listening sessions. All right, no questions or comments on that particular one, so let's continue on. Next set of links I want to talk about this. So how do I do like networking, relationship building, primarily in like the community, even like before Control Camp, because obviously Control Camp is like my main community building thing now. But there's a couple of different ways. There's a lot of places to find community, and here's why community is important. Because even like tonight, what I just did. So if you were here at the very beginning, I announced that I was looking for music for a French film that sounds like the UK rock band Status Quo, and I'm looking for that pretty urgently. And so I have this community that I can reach out to and say, hey, I need music. Now, I've got, Control Camp. Control Camp has 4,000, almost 5,000 members. I can email a bunch of people. We've done all these listening sessions. So I know who the rock people are. So I have that. But even before Control Camp, it was really important to be able to either get music that was needed made by myself, or be able to quickly pull in a group of people and say, hey, I've got this opportunity that needs this kind of music. Let's work on something. So being able to have a network of peers that you can rely on to get stuff done is super, super critical. So for me, when I first started, a lot of my Taxi was my first relationship. I talk a lot about like Taxi was kind of how I started in Sync. If you're not familiar with Taxi, TAXI.com, it is a kind of a Sync A&R service based in LA. It's a paid service that focuses mostly on Sync education. It mostly provides access to music libraries, that route of Sync placements. But what for me was so awesome about it is that the Taxi forums, before we had Facebook groups, there was a Taxi forum, which is still there. And I got my first Sync collaborator on that forum, we ended up making a bunch of music and getting some of my first placements was as a result of that collaboration. And dozens of other collaborations through those forums got me into a number of libraries. So from Taxi, I've always been focused on like community. Taxi.com, and Taxi's still there, it's still good for that. There's actually some offshoot Facebook groups that are based on the Taxi conference. A lot of us have taken the 6FS course with Kathy Heller and John Kleinbell. And so that community has been invaluable for me. I feel like, at least a quarter of Control Camp came from the 6FS community. And so, actually, I think John Kleinbell just announced a couple of weeks ago that he doesn't know, if there will be future Catch the Moon classes. So this community that we have is kind of us, and we'll between Control Camp and what John's doing and what Sonnet is doing and some other offshoots, we'll kind of keep this community growing in other ways. But that, that has been an awesome community. There's lots of private Facebook groups now that are based on either master classes or just pitching options. I'm sure some of you are involved in some. And then also, between Reddit, Discord, and Clubhouse, um, there's a lot more opportunities to just connect, collaborate, and learn together. And I think that's really, really important because this is one of the reasons why we're here. So, of course, this is what Control Camp is for. Control Camp is a free education community, and I'm really thankful to have been able to have a part in pulling this in place and putting it together. So that's networking, that's relationship building. Um, Message me, back channel, raise your hand if there's what other communities are you a part of? Anything that anybody wants to shout out that's been really good for them in terms of getting access, whether it's the brief or just education. Are you involved in any other sync-based community psychosis that you connect with?
Yeah, I'm driving, so let me know if it breaks up at all. But for me, I've talked about it a few times. One of the first places I started was kind of like a music library hybrid, and it was called Artlist.io.
Artlist.
And where Artlist was, yeah, Artlist for me was it primarily works with like what we consider micro syncs, where picture how Spotify is a subscription based service, and so long as you pay the subscription, you can get access to all the music on Spotify. It's a similar thing, but for people, mostly independent filmmakers, and people who have all different kind of projects where they may need music. And so I started there, and for me, what it did was just give me a international exposure, and also just to kind of see how some of my music responded on a large scale. Because when we make music, most of it, you kind of bounce it off your immediate circle and people around you, and you don't really know. You're like, "Hey, I'm wondering what should be the single. If you're an artist, what should be the single? What should be the video? Will people like this song or that song?" So for me, it kind of was like a magnifying glass, and it just multiplied my exposure for me to see like, oh, some of these songs that I didn't think were that big had a place where they can go live and grow and thrive and get in syncs. And one of the things that I learned was some of the music I was making, though I wasn't intending to, some of the music I was making, what I would see, those placements would get placed in like sports related footage. So it was a lot of like workout footage, MMA, kickboxing, boxing. They were using a song I made called ANC. And it never even crossed my mind to pitch this song for sports because it doesn't even have a hook. So I wasn't even thinking about pitching it at all, but I kind of just put it out there. But because it was driving, because of the kind of the tempo and the lyrics and the delivery, I saw a song that I didn't even really think about its potential kind of get picked up. And that just gave me like, a sense of direction. So that's where I really started, and then from there, I've worked with a couple of different music libraries and building relationships. But I would say Artlist was a great way if you're also a front facing artist and trying to kind of get a feel for what works and what people like and what can be used, because I look at it like music supervisors like hitting a home run, but those base hits count. Like if you get a music supervisor, you get a film placement, you've hit a home run. But some of these base hits count. Artlist was definitely getting on base, getting up at bat, and just kind of learning, where I could really see myself.
I love that. I love that. All right, I got some cool stuff in the back channel. Angela P. Lewis, what's up, Angela? She talks about musicians' peer support. Yep, we love them. She said they have a great community of people who are sync-minded. I agree with that 100%. Jennifer Herbig, she talked about Sync Summit, which is, I know you can to access them they have a Facebook group, but they also have a website. What Up Pitches, who I love, they also do listening sessions, and now they're also doing courses. They also do paid pitch sessions. Of course, the Sync report that we talk about a lot and support. They are they do have a Clubhouse room, but they also have a podcast that recently launched that we're very excited about. Another Facebook group Jennifer talks about is 206 group. I know 206. I didn't know they had a Facebook group, so I'm glad to know that. I'm gonna look them up. And she likes Broad Jam. I've heard different things about Broad Jam, but I've never used them. So it's actually um, I, if you use them, Jennifer, if anybody else, I would actually wouldn't mind somebody talking about their experiences with it because I don't know much about them. But really really cool to hear all those suggestions. Thank you. Hey Lisa, you're on stage. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Eric? No,
Very very good.
good. Yeah, they mentioned some of the other ones, but also, obviously, Tamara Bubble has like For Goodness Sake, and then there's Justina and Elaine. I feel like in that whole group of, the six FS, which a lot of us were involved with. A lot of things have sort of spun off from that, which has been great. So you have Sync Music for Change, which is really great. And then they started another one, Elaine and Justina, Unicorn Sync. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff out there, and you can learn from each and every one of them. Justina sometimes teaches a songwriting class. She's had some really good placements as well, so she's taught some songwriting classes, so that's been helpful. They mentioned musicians peer group. That's great. Rachel, and I guess that's her husband or whatever, but some really good groups out there to be a part of and learn from. Um, so just I guess you could pick like four or five that you really want to stay in touch with, because for me personally, if I'm in too many groups, I don't know what's happening, so I have to kind of like narrow it down to maybe four or five and kind of follow them and learn what you can and maybe move on. So there's some good groups out there.
I totally agree. I like all the names you said. I jump into to all of those rooms from time to time, so I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you, Lisa. Really
Yeah,
good
thank
stuff.
you. Thank you.
And Delay, I think I pronounced your name right. How are you doing?
I am good, Eric. Hope everyone is good as well. Please just let me know if my connection is not good.
Sounds good right now.
If I keep cutting off. Okay. No, thanks, man. But yeah, thanks for these tools that you're sharing. I'm actually taking down notes, and to Psychosis and Lisa as well. I'm finding it very helpful. What I've also been using is LinkedIn, because I've just recently started on trying to get into music production and working with music supervisors and music libraries. So I'm actually using LinkedIn, where I can just use the search function to search for those keywords for music libraries and music supervisors. So you kind of get a list of people who are sort of working in those fields. And then in conjunction with that, I would, because I'm an Android user, I usually then go into the podcast app just to search for their names and see if they've got any podcasts where maybe they've been guest onto. And then at least there you can sort of get a nice background of a particular individual or a company that you might be interested in approaching. So that's for now, that's kind of worked for me, because through that I've managed to sort of build relations with two music libraries that I'm currently working on, but they based in South Africa for now. I haven't been successful in sort of building relations with people outside of South Africa, which is why I then join Clubhouse, and groups like these, or sorry, rooms like these are quite actually helpful as well, because you get to then sort of meet a whole lot of people as well, and also go back and check if you guys, any of you guys that pop up here, might have any podcast or you may have been involved in in YouTube or in YouTube podcast feature. Yeah, so that's just it that I use. Hope other people might find it helpful as well.
And Delay, that's some great advice. Both the LinkedIn and the podcasting. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and especially since they've now switched it where you can not just connect with someone, because connecting is always like anxiety causing, because you ask somebody a connection, you don't know them, they might not accept a connection, and that's not always good. But now they have the follow on there. So a lot of times, if I don't know a person, I can just follow people that I want to know or want to get to know. I can follow them. It doesn't send them a connection request, but I see if they make posts. And then I'm able to, like, just like on Twitter or Instagram, I'm able to comment on that post. And that gives me access to try to get a genuine relationship without, asking for the connect request. So LinkedIn has been really, really, really good for me in that sense. And the podcasting is such a gem. I didn't even think of it, but when I go back to, like, literally how Control Camp started, um, Mike Ladman was a supervisor that I was following. I didn't have a relationship with him. I was following him on Twitter and on Instagram. And I did what you did, Andy. I looked him up and also looked up what podcasts he interviewed on. And I saw that he did some podcasts. And I listened to an episode of a podcast he did that was really good. And then I sent him a message. You know, I sent him a message about that podcast because it was actually a really good episode. And then he mentioned something about jingles in it. And so I sent him a message asking if he thought that jingles were going to make a comeback. Uh, and we did a Instagram DM, but that led to just a casual chatting back and forth. And maybe a few months later, he was actually running rooms on Clubhouse, and I already had the relationship, so I was able to ask him, "Hey, what's this Clubhouse thing that you're doing?" And he was the one who told me, "Hey, you got to get yourself an invitation and get on there." And that led to everything that we have now. So all that went back to me, was back to me listening to his podcast. So I totally actually forgot about that connection and delay till you brought that up. But that's how powerful listening to podcasts uh, can be. Just getting information on the people. So really, really cool, Jim. Thank you for sharing that.
No,
Uh,
no, that's good, man. Because I think another point to mention is just going slow and steady as well. Because in terms of once you make that connection or you get accepted, or someone starts messaging you back, where you just try and slowly build that relation, rather than just jump into quickly stating what you need. Because I think through just seeing what they share on their page, you can then start getting opportunities or more organic opportunities to sort of steer the conversation towards um, what services or what you would like to pitch.
exactly right. I 100% agree. Really, really good insight and good gems. Thank you. What's up, Jen?
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Hi, everybody. I was trying to type it in the back channel, but I just couldn't go back and forth and I kept losing it. So there's another resource on Clubhouse that I haven't been able to be in there recently just because I've been busy and stretching myself. But there's another really good educational Clubhouse room called the Songwriters Hub, and it's with Lauren Light from 206 and a really nice woman named Tracy Durrani and Federico Ferradina. And they basically go into film scoring and arrangement and sync and have a lot of really good, solid information and resources. And their clubhouses every Wednesday, 12 p.m. PST. And again, it's called the Songwriting Hub, film, music, and sync from the Songwriting Hub. So I follow them if anyone wants to, pop on my Clubhouse and check it out. But they're really good. And then about Broad Jam, really quickly about them, um, they've changed over the years, but I would liken them to Taxi in that what you said is true. If you want to get in there to maybe link up with some library resources, I think Broadjam's a good bet. And also for community, they have a really friendly community. I've known the owner for many, many years, and they're really good people. And ultimately, I would just say, just remember that you're always at least two or three layers removed, from meeting the actual supervisor. So just know that sometimes you don't always know who you're pitching to. You don't know if it's a library or a supervisor directly. Sometimes they'll say it, sometimes they won't. I don't pitch there as much because I'm more into pitching directly to the supervisors and the editors, but every once in a while you'll get the supervisors will go on there with a brief. So yeah, I think depending on what your angle is and what direction you want to go, that they could be a good resource as well. Just one more tool in the box.
Both really, really good. Yeah, I have not been able to jump in Tracy's room all this time, but I have chatted with her, and I love what she's doing and what they're doing. So I'm glad you brought them up.
For
Really,
sure.
really cool. Thank you. All right, let's keep things moving. I appreciate what you all shared, Lisa and Delay, Jen, and the people who back channel me. I definitely appreciate that. All right, so let's continue. This is Control Camp. We're talking about resources, online resources that really help getting sync placement. So we've covered kind of the links for researching music. We've covered the links for kind of building community. And this room is going to be available on replay. So if you miss that, you can kind of go back to the replay and kind of hear all those links. Those links are there. So let's talk about. I'm gonna fast forward. Let's get into file organization. This is something that I am passionate about. I'm very, when I was working in not in music, but working full time, I was a project manager for an IT company. So I've always been, the spreadsheet guy, the Gantt chart guy, database tables. Like I've always been in that world and very comfortable in that space. And so for me, coming into sync, I can be very anal about, organizing my music and my files and, where my documents are. And uh, I use I use a lot of different things. So let me talk about what I use, and then I really again want to open back up. A quick shout out to Patrice because she has the balloon, which means this is her Clubhouse anniversary. So her and Alan are both celebrating their Clubhouse anniversary. That's really, really cool. All right. So let me talk about what I use, and I definitely want to hear what the room uses or what other people might use to organize songs, how you organize your metadata, what services you use for actually pitching and streaming music. All right, for me, a lot of my music these days, I've moved a lot of things into Disco. I actually use Disco as the repository for my music, for my metadata, and for my own sync rep company. I use Disco libraries. It's so if you're not familiar with Disco, it's actually just Disco like the word DISCO .ac. It's not .com. It's .ac, and it is a paid service where you can upload music. You can upload other things too, but it's primarily for music. It was designed by music supervisors, meant for pitching music, to supervisors. So it allows you to put metadata in your songs. It allows you to submit playlists to anyone you want to email. It does a good job of letting you track email. So I can send a playlist of hip hop songs to 10 different supervisors, and I can send each of them an individual link so that I will know which supervisor actually listened to my playlist, and I'll also know which songs they downloaded. So it allows them to stream the music, and this is what's important about streaming sites. Places that allow you to stream should also give you the option to download the music if you want to. Like so, if you're sending music to supervisors, most do not like to receive um, attachments in the email unless they've asked for it. Most would prefer streaming links, but they want the option to be able to download, because if they like something, they need to grab it right then and there. They don't want to have to email you back and say, "Hey, that was great. Now can you send me the MP3, or now can you send me the high res?" And so the cool thing about Disco is I can upload a high res WAV or AIF, and then when I can send them a streaming link that they'll stream, then they have the choice to download the MP3. Disco will convert and create both. I don't have to upload the MP3 in WAV separately. I just upload the high res version. It creates the MP3. It gives the supervisor the option to stream, download the MP3, or download the high res version, and it lets me know if they listen to the playlist and which ones they downloaded. So for all those reasons, I'm a big fan of Disco. It's not a perfect system. I've yet to find any system that is perfect. There's some things like I don't even know if they've done an update in a while, and there's some features that I really wish that they would add. But I really do like it for uploading my music and tracking it. Some of the other things that I do use, I'm a big Google user, so I use Google Docs for like my lyrics. I use Google Sheets for um, a lot of information that I need to track, and I'm a big Google Drive user. So I find that Google Drive and iCloud is pretty less expensive, I think, than some other services like Dropbox or Box to increase your storage. So I'll leave a lot of my high res versions on Google Drive. I can share those links with people. So I personally I like Google Drive. I use iCloud for my own stuff. I don't necessarily send those links out, but just if I need like a high res stuff that I want access to, I'll use iCloud. So iCloud, Google Drive are kind of like my repositories. Google Drive is more of a shareable one for other people. But I know people that I collaborate with will use Dropbox. I have production companies I collaborate with that are really passionate about Box.com. I've been told that people like their security a little better than other sites. So, especially for some of these production companies that do deal with a lot of non-disclosure agreements, security is really important. And so they've liked that. And I know some people, especially if you just need a place to just send people links to use, SoundCloud can still work. There's a free service, and then I think you can do a small upgrade if you want to be able to do like featured songs. And those links will stream. The thing about SoundCloud, and I haven't been on there in a while since I started using Disco, but I believe you have to go into SoundCloud and tell it to give people download ability. And some people forget that. So they'll send out a link, but then that link is not downloadable. And so you just make sure whenever you're sending somebody a link that you're using something that allows it to be downloadable. All right, so that's my file organization. I use Disco, like I said, for metadata. It's all in there. And Google Drive and iCloud are my biggest, but I have heard cool things about Dropbox, about Box, and SoundCloud is an option. Psychosis, what do you use for when you need to send people links? Oh,
I'm
Psychosis, right
also
there.
I'm also using pretty much everything you just said. I got on Disco last year. When I learned about it, how much music supervisors prefer to use it. Super convenient, especially from metadata. If you've been on Clubhouse in any room about music, you probably heard people talk about metadata and how important it is for people to be able to find you. So I think a lot of this programs you just named, I use them all. In addition to it, I use some of the resources. Again, speaking from an artist perspective, that just kind of help me track. So, like on Disco, you can see who's downloaded it. Once I put music out, I like to follow where it's going. So, I use resources like Spotify for artists or Apple Music for artists, because it kind of just shows me demographics of who's listening, who's streaming, and where. And you know, a fan base in terms of what songs may make it to the radio or to movies might be totally different, but sometimes not, because sometimes the music supervisors are influenced about current trends that are happening in a certain region. And you may notice, hey, one of my songs is doing really well in Tokyo, and I don't know why. And you go find out that it's been added to playlists in Tokyo, and then you can find some other songs that are on there and see what kind of trends are happening, and then you can kind of sometimes tweak what you're doing to make music that you can pitch. So everything you just named is the same thing I pretty much use.
Love that. That was really, really cool. Okay, open to the room. Oh, actually, Jennifer just made a really good point. Um, be sure if you are sending streaming links, make sure that you're sending non-expiring streaming links. Especially if you're doing like when people ask for things like if you're using WeTransfer to send files, those links expire, and you don't want to do that because They may not. They might need more than a week to down. They might request it today, but not be able to get to it to a week for now. So if you're sending, make sure you have a service that allows streaming links. It gives them the download option, and it does not expire. Really, really good point, Jen. So thanks for saying that. All right. Anybody else in the room want to either back channel or come up on stage? I'm especially interested if anybody is a real big fan of Dropbox over some of the other services, or a fan of Box over the other services. I would love to hear any your I would love to hear your reasons of why you're excited about those, or if you use some other service for storing your files or sharing streaming links that we haven't mentioned. I would love to hear that too. So hand raising is on. Raise your hand, come up and share, or back channel me if you've got uh, some some thoughts about that. Hey, Mark is on stage. What's going on, Mark?
Hey, Eric. Psychosis, how you guys doing?
Good to see you.
Is my signal clear?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. You kind of brushed over Box, and I've never used it. But what was you said something about certain companies like the security better,
But
and so go ahead.
oh no, I can't fully speak to it. But companies, there are some companies that I've worked with that use Box to house their briefs. And when I submit music to them, I have a Box account because that's what they use. And I've been told by at least one of them that they like it because they feel like the security is better than either Dropbox or Google or some of the others. But I've never had any more information than that.
So
That's one of the reasons why I was open.
so in that case, would you maybe do like a month? Do they allow month by month subscription so you don't have to have multiple subscriptions going on all the time?
I am not sure about Box. I know, like, I have Dropbox and I have the free version, but I'm pretty much maxed out for free, and
Mm-hmm.
so to get any more space, I have to pay. And I'm think that's it with a lot of these is based on how much space you're using, and if you want more space, you have to up to upgrade.
Okay. And my other question was with Disco. As far as the tracking, is it the higher level where you can actually tell if they downloaded the song? I have Disco, but I've just started using it, so I don't know all the ins and outs yet.
I do not think that is like a premium level, but I
Mm.
honestly do not remember the different levels. I signed up at one level and then upgraded when I got libraries, but
Yeah,
I'd have to go
libraries.
back and see.
Libraries is the higher one, if I remember. So you do have the higher one. I think you
Yeah,
do.
but
I'm just curious.
I've always been able to do analytics. So analytics
Okay,
is what tells you who listened and how they listened and having the customized links. But I
cool.
don't want, maybe there's another level below where I started. So I don't want to say for sure, but I believe that the analytics was available to me from the very beginning.
I, I remember right. There's three levels, like the basic, and then you probably have the higher one. I'm in the middle one. I'm pretty sure. Somebody else would know the answer, but thank you. I don't want to hog the
Oh, no
stage.
worries. But yeah, if you're in the middle, then you should definitely have at least the analytics and the ability to send
Yeah, I can. There's
customized
little
links for each person.
I get the little notifications with the bell, so I can see that part. I know I'm getting that. When they viewed it, at least streamed it.
And then if you go, like if you click on any song in the playlist that you're working on, when you click, because I'm actually on Disco now, if you click on any of your playlists and then you click on share, there is one that says email playlist directly. And then there to the right of that, there's something that says assign a
Oh
URL
yeah,
to a
the
contact.
ones I've never used. That's
Yeah,
what
so
those are
assign a
for.
URL to a contact. You can put the person's email and it'll give them their own URL, and then you can send them just that URL, and it'll tell you when they've opened that email, and you can give everybody a different URL.
That's awesome.
It's really really cool.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Got Carla on stage. How you doing, Carla?
Hey, how are you? This is such a cool conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. Is this your first time in our room?
It is, and I'm so glad that I found you. I got like a random sort of notice that you guys were jumping on, and I was like, "Ooh!" I was actually doing stems when I got it, and I was like, "I could do this while I'm doing stems."
Oh, that is awesome. We love that.
So I just wanted to chime in on Dropbox, not necessarily for storage, but when the pandemic hit, I started using it with one of my collaborators as our just sort of it was our replacement for using Avid's system for doing remote sessions, which was kind of a disaster. So we started using Dropbox, where so basically the Pro Tools session lives in Dropbox. We'll have an initial session, upload it to Dropbox, and then every time one of us would work on it, we would just grab it from Dropbox, do whatever we're doing, and then we had a system where we changed the file name. Like mine would be C1 and then his would be L2, something like that. And and then we would just sort of go back and forth sharing the same Pro Tools file to build our session. Does that make sense, what I just said?
No, totally does. Exactly. It's like you guys came up with your own content management system. That's really cool.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, because when the pandemic hit, we weren't working in the same studio anymore, so we needed to be efficient. Like I said, we tried the Avid remote system, and it kind of got us into some trouble. It wasn't always uploading stuff, and we had deadlines, and it was bad.
I like that. Yeah, and so just having it in a shared space, one person opens it, messes around, saves it, changes the name, and as long as you guys are communicating, keep track of then you have you know what the latest version is, and you know that you're
Mhm.
opening the right version. That's really cool. I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, it worked. And we're still doing it. And as long as you're both not trying to record something at the same time or mix at the same time. But we knew when we usually tag team stuff anyway. So as long as you're taking turns with that session, or else you risk overriding something, right? Other than that, pretty foolproof.
I love that. Is there a reason that you did it with Dropbox, say, over Google Drive or some other system?
I don't remember exactly what the decision was. It was probably because someone else was doing it that way, someone we thought was doing good work and just kind of went with it. And we both had already had Dropbox, the subscription. So we knew we had plenty of space up there. Yeah. And then interestingly, when the pandemic hit, I started teaching a music production class at Berkeley. And one of the lessons is in using Dropbox to collaborate with another student. So that kind of sealed the deal for me.
Right. That made it
Big
official. That's really
endorsement.
cool. Carla, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really
You're
awesome. I
welcome.
appreciate you coming on stage and sharing. And
Thanks
welcome
again
to
for doing
Control
this.
Camp.
Thank you.
Hope you
Glad to be here.
stick around and share with us.
I will. Thanks so much.
All right, Anthony, got you on stage. How's it going?
Hey, pretty good. Can you hear me, Eric?
Yep, I can hear you good.
Okay, good, great. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly share my experience with using with Box. Now, I do believe they have a paid version for like higher stores, but I'm actually using the free version. And I've heard people talk about using other services, which again I haven't used as much, but some of the features that they have are still available on Box. So like for instance, I can upload my WAV or my MP3 or even other things and share the link, and it can be streamed and downloaded, using the link that I'm providing from Box. And I can also get notifications from there letting me know that either someone has streamed the content that I put up or they've also downloaded it. So that kind of also helps me as I'm, pitching out more stuff. I can see if they've actually listened to it, if they've, downloaded it and so forth. So I've had good experience with Box.com.
That's great, and on all that is available at the free level.
Yes.
That's awesome. I'm glad you shared that. I didn't even know that. So it's really, really cool. Yes, that's a great. Which is the primary thing. The key important thing for the room that you need is something that you could upload a high res version to, and where or an MP3 where the supervisor or whoever, music library, they can stream it and they have the option to download without them having to go back to you to ask for you to send them a downloadable version. And that link should be, it should be an unexpiring link. So it should be able to stay open as long as they need it to stay open. Very, very cool, Anthony.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks so much. All right, let's continue on. Since we're talking about organization, let me stay in the organization and move on to project management. Um, and I want to talk about, so what I use for when I think of project management, I'm talking about where, and I guess this is extra for some. Everybody doesn't do this or need to do this. I I got really big into this. I've always been big into tracking things, so I've always used like Google Sheets and Google Docs. But and I always kept some project management processes because it was really important to me to like be able to know when I needed to have a song turned around, or to keep some track of song concepts and lyric titles and things like that. But when I really shifted after taking 6FS, when I really shifted into doing my own pitches, I got I took I really took more seriously tracking um, music supervisors, agencies, people to reach out to, and started keeping track of who I want to reach out to, whether I reached out to them, keeping dossiers on music soups. And so I'm pretty serious with that. So I got I think it was Daraj who introduced me to Airtable, and Airtable is exactly what I was looking for. I came from an IT background, so I was familiar with databases. I used to do programming for databases, so that concept was very comfortable for me. But I couldn't afford like a big, expensive system like Oracle or something like that. And so when Airtable found out, it's kind of like this midway point between an Excel spreadsheet and a huge Oracle database. So you can do these tables and capture lots of information, but you can link the data. So I can have tables um, that keep track of all the supervisors, but then I can have other tables for each of those supervisors. I can track, did I reach out to them? When I reached out to them? What was the subject of that last conversation? Just what state does somebody live in? What company does that person work in? And then information on those companies in terms of what type of brands those companies deal with. Like the power in the database, like there's a lot of big brands invest in what they call customer CRM, which stands for customer relationship management software. Um, a lot of big companies invest a lot of money into that because being able to, the more you know about your customers, the better you can sell to them. And so for us, supervisors, libraries, sync agents, those are our customers. And so I got pretty serious about being able to track that reach out. So I became a fan of Airtable. It's something I use. I use it a lot. I kind of built my own CRM in Airtable. I use Google Sheets. I use Google Docs. And so that's for tracking, Airtable's for tracking people and correspondence, you know, my outreach, and kind of like growing my relationships. It manages my relationships. On the project management side, keeping track of like, especially now that I'm repping songs, so I have songs in my database that are not mine. So I have a collection of music. Each of those songs have writers. I need to keep track of who the one stop contact is. I need to keep track of everybody's publishing information. I need to keep track of their split percentages. And so I also use Airtable to keep my music details, my song details, for my catalog. And then I have been using kind of for project management, like to-do list. I've tried a couple of different systems. I mean, I'm on the iPhone, so I definitely use like reminders and memos and voice memos on the iPhone. I'm pretty, I have thousands of all of those things. But I've tried a couple of different systems. Some people like Asana, Asana. Some people like Trello, Trello. I was using both of those, and then again, Daraj, who's always up on like what the latest like tool or tip is. He got me into a product called ClickUp, CLICKUP, which is kind of like Asana and Trello, and it mixes a little bit of it's like a to-do list, but you can do reminders, you can have calendars on there. It's a little complicated, but I kind of invested so much time to figure it out that I'm just like, I'm not shifting to anything else now. And so I don't know that there's like a perfect system in terms of keeping like your to-do list and tracking, especially if you have like briefs or you have deadlines. I like to have something that I keep track of those things. So I know what I'm supposed to be working on. I can split up house tasks for music tasks. I can organize. I have my things organized for my business. So I've been using ClickUp and I like it, but it is kind of very complex. So that's I threw out a lot, but I definitely want to hear from the room with you guys. If anybody uses anything for project management, to-do list, tracking, come up on the stage, share. Let me hear what you got on that, what you use, or back channel message me. How are you with that psychosis? Do you organize your stuff? Do you use any particular tools for things like to-do list, tracking your sessions, or anything like that?
Man, as you was talking about that, man, my head was spinning like, man, I wish I could be this organized. Like, but actually, some of the things, to be honest with you, I've gotten pretty good at just giving myself like mental cues to remember some things I need to do. Just not just because of music, just in general. I kind of have a task oriented life, so I use a lot of reminders. Just on my apps. Um, to do things. But I'm also in real estate. So when you were talking a second ago about CRMs, I'm familiar with that world because we kind of use those same processes. For me, it's not so much to remind us to do stuff. It's probably more of the time of when I want to do what. So I try to get better at blocking out, not overexerting myself in the same time. I got a pretty good memory of things that I want to do once I know that they're scheduled in a day. Like I can remember 7 or 8 things I'm supposed to do today. But I got to make sure that I don't put them all at 12 o'clock noon. So I use just a variety of different apps, calendars, reminders to kind of color code maybe certain tasks. So like music tasks might be green, real estate tasks might be red, family tasks might be purple. And I just kind of try to do it that way so that I can kind of see it visually and separate the things. Um, but also try not to. I make a conscious effort to try not to do too much because I'm the type of person that just stay in go mode all day and just try to do. I think it's really important to remind us of don't try to do too much, but stay as.
I love that, and I love the perspective. Really, really cool. Got John on stage. What up, John? And congrats on your Clubhouse anniversary.
Hey, thanks, guys. I got a free balloon. Let's check this out.
Isn't that cool?
Man, I'm climbing up in the world. Hey, I'll double up on what Psychosis said, and I think a calendar is really important, and you have to kind of separate your music tasks from your in my case, my day gig tasks and my family commitments and stuff too. But the first step is a calendar. The second thing I do is I do a lot of stuff through Google Doc, or I'm sorry, through Dropbox. Um, I dump a lot of stuff on there. I have folders for each of the collaborations that I do. I see Lisa Williams down there. We're collaborating on something right now. Um, and so, I have separate folders for all of that. And I try to keep demos uh, in Dropbox. And then also, as kind of the icing on the cake, I use Disco, which is real handy for sending around work tapes with lyrics and all that kind of stuff. So, some multiple tools available. We have more tools available than we really need, to be honest with you. But so I guess the point is, find something that's comfortable for you. Find a platform that you really know well, and just try to master one or two little things. and be as efficient as you can on that. And there are lots of ways to get to get organized. The key is just have a plan and have a procedure to keep all your stuff in line.
I love that, John. I appreciate you sharing all that. Really, really cool. Thank you. And Angela, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am very good. What do you
Good.
what
Well,
do you use to organize?
you just brought up, well, when you were talking, it made me remember that I used to use this app called Awesome Notes, and I don't know. I guess they must have done an upgrade or something, because when I went to go try to get it, I had to pay $2.99 for it, so I just paid for it again. I think I had it on my iPad some years ago, and I really liked it because it did have a lot of that color coding options, like Psychosis was saying. Another thing that I do is on paper, and I got to go back to doing this. When Psychosis was talking about it, it reminded me of that. I would do a to-do list, and I would have that same thing, like family was purple. Anything that had to do with me making money was green. I would highlight that green. Anything that had to do with, maybe paying debts or whatever was red, or, business was red. But I did that, to kind of just visualize my day. Another thing that I do now, it's more of a time management thing, as I do a more of a rolling to-do list. And, um, not try to cram too much into a day, but do those few things that, are business related, family related, whatever, to get that I know are pressing issues for that day, and try to knock those out. And then what I don't get to, roll that to the next day. And that's been working out really well for me. And then the last thing is another time management tool. I don't know if you've heard of Pomodoro technique. It's kind of hard to use as a creative when you're like writing or something like that, but I have used it in that way, where you set a timer. Let's say I was working on a brief that was due, I want to say, who I might have had maybe 10 hours. I don't know. Maybe 12 hours, something like that. But instead of me having to try to cram it, just trying to cram it all in one sitting, I made myself break it up by using the Pomodoro technique. And there are a lot of free apps out there for this. But basically, it's like the concept is you have long stretches of work time. It could be 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I would say an hour max, because you don't want to burn yourself out. But it's a way to kind of prevent burnout, and it gives you that time to give you a little break to go check your social media, make a phone call, answer an email or something like that, and then you get right back to work. And you do, um, I want to say the app that I use, I want to say after 4 Pomodoros, which is the Pomodoro is the long stretch and then the short break. After the four, you get a longer break on your fifth Pomodoro, I think it is. So let's say you might have 45-minute work time, 10-minute break, and then 45 minutes. You just keep doing that, and then that longer break is maybe 30 minutes. Kind of reward yourself or whatever. So I like to do that when I'm trying to do focused tasks. It works very well for household chores and things like that. Boring, monotonous things like going through paperwork. But it also does work, when you're kind of on a time crunch, but you still want to have some type of life. So that's all I have to
That is
say, Angela
awesome, Angela.
Lewis.
Thank you. I actually had not heard of the Pomodoro technique, so I'm really glad you shared. I'm going to actually look that up. I always like looking at. Focus is something that I always try to work on, especially since a lot of times I'm sitting at the computer for hours on end and trying to stay and give myself breaks, but trying to find ways to stay efficient for longer periods of time. So I love getting different techniques to compare. So I appreciate you sharing that. Awesome, awesome. We got Nicole Sanzio on stage. What up, Nicole?
What's up, Eric?
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Are you in a train station?
I'm at the gym.
Oh,
Does
very
it
cool,
sound
very
bad?
cool. No, no, no. It just sounds
Okay.
like machines in the background, but it's
Oh,
all good.
okay. Yeah, there are.
Cool. How you been?
I'm
So
good, I'm good.
it's actually cool having you here because as so what we're talking about, we're doing all these resources for sync placement. but I've been covering a lot of different grounds. So we talked about like different links where you could research music. So we talked about TuneFind and IMDb and all this stuff. But then we talked about like where to build community. But we've been focused recently just on like project management and what people use, whether it's Airtable or ClickUp or Asana, like what you use. But you do so much from creating music to brief to at one point you were kind of repping songs. I'm sure you may do some of that, but I
Yeah.
also see on your profile you are doing your own solo piano album, which is amazing. So
I
congrats.
know. Thank
That's
you.
so cool. But so
Yeah.
I'm thinking for you though, this is really relevant because you have some system where you're juggling all these things, like you have deadlines on each individual thing? Like what do you do to track all that and keep them
Um,
separate?
I mean, I use my calendar a lot to remind myself, just, standard Outlook calendar, um, and really just to manage everything. I got Disco, and, I only really found the need to use it when I was in LA, away from my local drives and all that. So I was doing that. And my main system, believe it or not, is SoundMiner.
Is
Does it
what?
SoundMiner?
I don't know this one. What is that?
Um, it's an Avid system,
Oh,
and it's been used for a long time, and it's like a really really robust iTunes. So, but very robust. Like it's. I hope I never have to use something else, because it works so well. But between that and then I kind of shifted everything to source audio just so I had it online, but I don't need to do that anymore because of Disco. Source audio to me, I know a lot of people are using it, but it's very cumbersome, so I'm ditching it.
I'm glad to hear. I'm not glad to hear you say that, but I was actually curious because I hadn't really talked to a library owner, and I know sound source audio has kind of been the standard for libraries, and I really didn't know if people were shifting over from source audio to Disco. So it's really good to hear you
Yeah,
give that perspective.
yeah,
So cool, so cool. Thank you so much. I'm glad to have you here.
yeah. Thanks
While
for
you're
having
working
me.
out.
Okay, thanks.
All right, continue on. All right, so it's 9:30. We've covered a lot of ground. Let me cover. If you walked in here, this is Control Camp. We are a free sync education community that helps you learn about writing music for TV, ads, and games, bringing you composers, songwriters, supervisors. I am a composer, songwriter. I've done a little bit of music supervision, and I host this room, and we're here every week at Wednesday from 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern. And sometimes we do listening sessions. Sometimes we do briefs where we're looking for music. Actually, I announced at the beginning that if anybody has music that sounds like Status Quo, The Wanderer, or their song Whatever You Want. I have a French film that is looking for music for that. It's pretty urgent, so I need it tonight. So you can DM me if you have something, if I haven't already messaged you uh, about it. But if you want more in terms of getting on our listening sessions, knowing when we do briefs, knowing about our new community that I'm building off of Clubhouse, we'll still have the Clubhouse room, but we'll actually be able to meet and do Zoom sessions and do listening sessions and briefs all in our own kind of private social network. I'm working on that now. If you want more information about that, click the link at the top of the room, Control Camp sign up, and you will be kept abreast of everything that we're doing. All right, so we got 30 more minutes. We're going to come to cover this, and then we go to our after party, which is a social room where we just kind of chat, get to know each other. We don't really talk music in that room. We just kind of get to build up our genuine, organic friendship, and it's actually pretty cool because sometimes we get more placements and opportunities coming out of our after parties than in here because in this business, placements kind of come from real genuine relationships. So if you're not following us, click on the Control Camp, hit the follow button, and then follow to the after party so we can all get to know one another. That's going to start as soon as this room ends at 10 o'clock. All right, so what I want to cover for the last 30 minutes, we're talking about resources that I use in sync placement that some of my peers use, and we're going to find out what you use. So we talked about community, we talked about listening sessions. I do want to just go back and stress, as we're talking about community, how important listening sessions are, because as you're making all this music, it's important to have some kind of sounding board. It's one of the things that I liked about being a taxi member was just being able to get feedback. I came from a place where prior to, this we're talking 10 years ago, so prior to taxi, I was writing and pitching music all the time for artist placements, giving them to A&Rs and A&R consultants, and then never hearing anything back. And I had done that for years, over and over and over, with like really poor results. And so coming into something like Taxi, where I'm actually getting feedback, the feedback feels relevant to me. It was game changing because it allowed me to level up so much faster, take the feedback, use it to adjust my music, my production, and then make everything else, even better and stronger. And so Taxi still does that. They're a paid service, but they still do have that where you're able to submit music, and then the music you submit, a lot of them, they'll give you written feedback. There are a number, now you have so many options now. There are paid consultations, there are private Facebook groups all along Sync that do listening sessions. Somebody already mentioned What Up Pitches that does some paid Sync placements, but also listening sessions. Of course, Control Camp, we do our listening sessions. All our listening sessions are free. I actually have now expanded besides doing them just here on Clubhouse. I will occasionally do them on IG Live and TikTok Live. So if you're on either of those services, all you have to do is just follow me and then turn your notifications on so that when I go live, you'll be able to hear it. And then I usually would just do off the spot listening sessions to give you feedback on any music that you want to present. It's very hard. Some of you do DM me. It's very hard, to be quite honest, to listen to stuff in DMs. I just get too much. I get too many songs. So I personally try to set aside times, like listening sessions, where it's like, okay, I'll just listen to everything. I got an hour and I'm just going to listen to however many songs I can listen to in this hour. So that works well for me. Some other supervisors I've known that have been here, they'll do things like they'll allow you to submit, they'll set up Spotify playlists, and they may allow you to submit a song on that playlist, and they may give you one piece of feedback. I don't think he'd mind me saying his name, but Mike Ladman is one of the supervisors, because in his Instagram profile he says you're allowed to DM me one song, and I'll give you feedback on one. So some supervisors go out their way to try to open up the reviews. It's just hard for everybody because you get so much. It's hard to give that kind of feedback. So there were no new links in that from what we said earlier, so I'll just continue on. Although Jen Herberg did say in a back channel, which was cool, that Sync Summit does both paid and sometimes free listening sessions. So Sync Summit, there's a Facebook page you can follow them on, and they're also on their website. You can sign up on their mailing list to know what they do. But let's continue on from listening sessions to actually talking about pitching music. And I'm not talking about, obviously there are libraries and there are sync agents. We talk about those all the time. And we talked about how to research those and how to use sites like TuneFind and IMDb to research, and Music Library Report to research libraries, agents, and supervisors. So if you came in late and you didn't hear me talk about those earlier, you can come back and use the replay. You'll be able to catch all of those links. But now I'm talking about now like either pitching services that you pay for, or that are automated, that you can upload your music and then be submitted or considered for different briefs. So my overall sense in this whole industry, I still have yet to, on the automated side, I have yet to find anything that I'm like totally excited or ecstatic about. But I'm gonna talk about some of the things that are out there, and I totally would love to hear in the room some of the services that you might be using for different pitches, and just we can share the information and see what we like. Obviously, I always talk about, I started with Taxi. Taxi was my first pitching service. their system is different than anybody else's that you might see now. Whereas you pay an annual fee, 300. It's always been the same. They haven't raised their prices in 10 years to their credit, but it's $300 for the first year, and then $200, for every year you renew. But you submit to a particular brief. I think it's like $5 per submission. You can submit up to 3 songs at a time. And then if they actually have, instead of submitting to the final decision maker, you're submitting to a review panel that's made up of people who have either retired, A&R people, or people who have been in some aspect of the industry somewhere, the hand selected people. And so they'll review the song and give you a written feedback. I actually have always been impressed with the feedback that I've gotten. Even if I didn't agree with it sometimes, I've been impressed with the level of detail and the perspective for the most part. But they'll give you feedback on your songs, and the ones that they feel make the cut, they'll forward it on to the opportunity. So actually, I believe, no, I don't know if that's how I got a relationship with Nicole. I may have met Nicole
We
at
met there. Yeah,
a
I think.
conference,
Yeah, we met at Taxi.
but not through a brief, right? It wasn't
No,
through a forward. We just met at the conference.
right.
Cool, yeah. Um, but they will forward your music on to libraries, and they still work this exact same way. And that's how a lot of the libraries I met through either at the Taxi conference or as a result of getting my music forwarded through Taxi. So that's one service that's still in existence. The only, what I feel like, limitation, we talk about so many different routes now to music. There are pitching for trailers, there's working with sync agents, there is doing custom work. Taxi doesn't really get you access to those routes. They really are focused primarily on the music library route. And so that is one. If you were here 2 weeks ago, I did a talk on the five proven paths to placements in sync, and I talked about each one individually and the exact steps you need to take. If you did not see that, go back into our replays. You can look on my profile here or the Control Camp profile, and it's like a 2-hour talk, but it details each of the 5 lanes and gives you an exact blueprint to follow. It's all free info. That's what I do, and it's out there. So if you haven't taken advantage of that, I encourage you to go back and listen to that replay for as long as Clubhouse keeps it available. But so that's Taxi. Another service, Disco. We use Disco. We talked about it as a repository for songs, but it also does have this relatively new, meaning in the last year, library feature. I've been using it. Um, the intention, I don't think it has caught on yet, and it's not really doing what they intended for it. They intended for it to be a discovery service where music supervisors can discover your library. I've had a few music supervisors kind of find my library through there, but very few. For the most part, my library is up to me to pitch. I use it to organize my library, the songs that I'm repping, and I use it to send out. The discovery aspect, I don't know that they are taking full advantage, or they haven't matured their process for how they're making the supervisors aware of it, or the whole discoverability. I think that's my overview of the automated services in general. Disco, Song Trader, all these sites, they're supposed to work automated, but then when you look at them, like, it's supposed to be you upload your music, you use your metadata, and then the metadata, the people who are looking for you can find you and do business. And none of them really work that way. I actually had a really good talk just a week ago with somebody who used to work at Song Trader, and I have music on Song Trader. SongTrader is a site that's supposed to be that. You upload your music, you upload your metadata, and you can submit for opportunities, but also when supervisors go to the site, they can find you through your metadata and through search, and boom, it connects supervisors and artists together. But I know a number of artists who have gotten placements through Song Trader, but for each of those who've gotten placements, they were not necessarily pitching to a particular brief. They were found what looks mostly to be through somebody in the back channel. So Song Trader still has like A&Rs that are fielding requests from supervisors who call and say, "Hey, I need a rock song." And so that, and they're like, "Oh, let me get on and do some searches and pull some music for you," because this, and this is I've got this directly from, like I said, somebody who worked there in this role. The supervisors still don't have the time to sit and do the search and then go through 100 different results that come up. And so we've had Jess Gramuglia on here numerous times, who's a supervisor for Condé Nast. She uses Song Trader, but she uses it this way. She calls and talks to somebody and says, "I need this. What do you have?" And so in a lot of ways, these companies that are supposed to be automated really are just operating just like regular libraries. There's still basically a gatekeeper who's like, "Oh, let me pitch you this music, let me pitch you this." And so if that gatekeeper is not finding me, I'm not going to get pitched. So it's not necessarily the appeal of these sites supposed to be metadata, quality of your music alone should get you discovered. And that's not really happening yet in any site that I'm seeing. So I'm personally a little discouraged in SongTrader. I've had my account there for a couple of years. I do not know how long I'm going to keep it open, but I am totally interested in hearing. Like I said, people are getting placements, but the placements are not happening in the automated way that we've been that's been promoted as the way it's supposed to work. There are other services like Tracks and Field, Music Gateway. These are companies that you can look up and research yourself. These are companies that pretty much put out briefs. You can sign up and get a membership, and if they'll pitch your music. And if you get a placement, some of them let you pitch for free, but um, they'll take a share, and sometimes a big share. They may take as much as half, depending on what it is. If you get the placement, and so there are automated things out there, but again, in my opinion, the entire automated pitch industry has a long way to go to really um, fulfill the role of what they've promised. All right, so I went on a little rant, but I'm totally would like to hear if anybody's used any of those services and they're excited about it, or if there's another service that I have not mentioned that you use to pitch. Now, I haven't talked about things. Psychosis did talk earlier about like Artlist. So we've got a lot of new things happening now, like microsync companies like Artlist, and what's the other one that's similar to Artlist that we talked about once before Psychosis? I can't think of their name.
Um, there's a couple. I can't think. I was actually about to just add. I don't know if you mentioned Music Gorilla.
Oh, I
Um,
don't know. I don't know them.
okay, yeah, Music Gorilla is kind of like Song Trade. I also have a Song Trade account. I've sent them half my life. Never, never really got a placement. So what you just explained, or kind of makes it make sense. But what I found with Music Gorilla is probably about as closest as I've seen to what actual briefs from music supervisors look like. They kind of just seem to play like a middleman service. Now, I've gotten some, a placement here and there. Haven't gotten major moves with Music Gorilla, but one cool thing they also do is they have showcases. So then they'll bring artists, out to like a South by Southwest, and you kind of can perform under their moniker, and the people who know the company are music supervisors and people looking for artists. So beyond just giving briefs, they also create like performance events that people can apply to sometimes for free, and if you're selected you can kind of go showcase yourself for people. And
Do you know? Is it gorilla like spelled like the animal, or gorilla like guerrilla warfare? Do you know?
it's spelled like the animal.
I have to look it up. You're not familiar with them. I appreciate you um, sharing something new. I always like getting turned on to new things.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can upload I want to say maybe 5 songs with a free account, and then you can use those to pitch at briefs. And they'll send out like I said, very similar to a brief email that you'll get from directly from a music supervisor. Sometimes even including song references or video link references. and sometimes the budget as well. So
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking at the site now. It's
yep.
musicgorilla.com. Music gorilla spelled like the animal.com. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you, bro. We got Richard up on stage. You got a question that you want to share your experience, Richard?
Yeah, just share experience. How's it going, Eric, Psychosis, and Nicole? Thank you for holding the great room as always. Um, so I, deal with two artists, working with them, and one of my artists on the top of the year when I decided to move forward with her, we used one of these services called NARIP. I'm sure you all are familiar with them. I mean, it just felt kind of, I don't want to say like a scam, but I'll just say my experience from that is the reason why what kept me away from like spending any more money like into taxi or any of these other services because I feel like it's just a collection of money. Like how like what's the percentage of people they're actually placing, especially when my artist was going up in front of maybe I think we did like two or three supervised sessions and the supervisors were blown away, but it was always like, oh yeah, but that isn't it, out of like the 10 songs they would listen to they would always be the most impressed. But it was always like, oh, I don't know, whatever. Take my email. It seemed kind of empty and shallow and not worth the money. Because I mean, if it really is worth the money, I'd put these two artists in 20 different services like this if they truly are doing what they say they do. So it just left a bad taste.
I so appreciate you sharing that. I did want to touch on some paid pitch opportunities, and it's a perfect way to lead into that. And I'll share a couple of different perspectives. I think it's important for everybody to hear because it's important for everybody to hear different perspectives because paid pitch opportunities are out there and they're out there in different ways. I I personally have used different ones and have gotten good results. There's some that I've used that I've questioned the results. Now, NARIP is someone that I've used a couple of times. Is NARIP. It's the National Association of Recording Industry Professionals, I believe is the acronym. And so they do paid pitches, and it's just for the room in case you don't have the context. Usually before the pandemic, you could go in person. They were always held in LA, and they would allow a couple of people to stream in. And now, obviously, they're all virtual when they do them. But they'll bring, select supervisors that you really wouldn't have access to any other way, which is the the selling point of it. And then for a couple of $100s, you know, it's the way they started. It was a pricier point than what some companies now, like What Up Pitches and others, might be doing for paid pitch opportunities. But at the time, I remember when NAB has been doing it, they were really the only ones, and because they were in LA, they could get in person um, pitch opportunities that you couldn't get anywhere else. And so I never did one in LA. Got started it when they were virtual, but I did do one with the supervisor that I was pleased with the results. Again, it did not lead to a placement, but it did lead to a cool relationship with a supervisor that I did not know and had not had access to before. And from my perspective, that particular pitch was worth it. But I always see those things that I defer to someone like you look at an artist like Tamara Bubble. She just released a book actually that I highly recommend um, called something like From Sync to Superstar. And she talks about how she's gotten all her sync. She's all over the sync world. She runs her own agency now, but she's been getting placements everywhere from, All American to she just did her own commercial and Save a Lot. Not only is her music in the commercial, but she's actually acting and singing her song in the commercial national campaign. So she's really killing it in a lot of different spots. But I remember from early now, every time I would look at some of the replays, Tamara was in every single pitch session. And these sessions are each like $300 each. And every single time she's there playing songs. And when I look up like replays for like SyncCon or Sync some other things, Tamara's there pitching her music. Like she has hardly ever passed up a paid pitch opportunity because prior to something like this with Control Camp or prior to Sync Summit or some of these things that now are where supervisors because of the pandemic are more readily available now than they were prior to 2019, and so the only way to get to them was going through some of these organizations, pitching, you know, getting access to people. Otherwise, your only choice is to go through a music library, to go through a sync agency, and you're going to pay one way or the other. From my perspective, you're going to pay on the front end, up front to form your own relationship, or you're going to pay on the back end. But I never viewed it as paying for something that was supposed to land a placement right then. I viewed it as I'm paying for access and an opportunity to form a relationship. They love the music, then cool. That means they're going to respond to my emails, and I can send them more music. And when I have what they need for a particular thing, because the music supervisor went crazy over the song that I played at my narrow pitch. He didn't have anything he needed, but he said, "Yo, this is going on my playlist. I'm going to keep this in mind for stuff." And great. And I know that as I has more music, I can send him more music. And so now, will I do a NARP thing? It's hard now because NARP prices. I haven't been on in a while. I do like NARP the organization, but post Zoom paid pitches, the prices have come down in so many other places. I think what a pitches may charge like $75 for their paid pitch opportunities, and I don't know what Sync Summit charges. But I don't know that they're doing $300 for a pitch anymore. So that being said, you probably have more options now, but I don't necessarily think that those things are scams. I do think that they're just opportunities to if you had the opportunities to build relationships. And I think if you see it from that way, then you're not necessarily let down when it doesn't lead to an immediate placement. But that's just my perspective, Richard. I appreciate you sharing your experience.
Thank you, Eric.
Cool. I got a couple of people coming up to the stage, so we're totally open to hear other people's thoughts. What up, Jen?
Hey, so Sync Summit is 75. They used to be 150, and then 2020 hit, and they wanted to keep it going. So they ended up doing a whole bunch of cool free stuff throughout 2020. But when they brought it back, I mean, I think they just realized that there were a lot of people out of work and, still just getting back into the flow of things. And so they had lowered what was previously their listening sessions from 150 to 75. And I just wanted to touch on really quickly what you said about Tamara Bubble and relationships. I remember when I first started pitching before the pandemic for through Sync Summit, and I remember asking her because I knew Tamara because of all of the FGS stuff and the going to those events and everything. And I remember asking her like I could pay, twice that, to go to an event, or I could do these, one or two things. And she just said to her, what's more valuable, being one of 150 to 500 attendees and trying to get the attention of an executive when they're just burnt out and just did their thing, and some of them are really generous and some of them just want to go home, or you have that kind of one-on-one experience. If anyone's ever been to the listening sessions, they're usually pretty small, anywhere from like 10 to 15 people max, and usually they get to hear if not your full song, a good portion of it, and speak to you directly. A lot of them are generous enough to share their contact information with you afterwards. So I really took it to heart what she said, and I think it was a valuable choice for me to put the money into it when I had it, to start that relationship up, where they actually remember you as opposed to just a face in a crowd of, a few hundred. So that's my just 2 cents. And it was actually Tamara who had, kind of said all the things you said, Eric, to me as well. So really consistent in that way.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate the perspective. Really, really, really insightful. And so, yeah, it's one of the
Sure.
reasons why I wanted to do this room. I wanted to share what I use, what links I use, what communities I'm part of, what I use for pitching, what I use for organizing, but also give the opportunity for the room to share because the more we share our information, the better it is for all of us to level up on that. So if anybody has missed any of the links that I've shared or any of the processes that we've shared, the replay will be available as soon as this room is over, so you can always go back and hear it. I've talked about everything from how I research music, how I find music supervisors, who to pitch to, how I find what they're working on, what do I what where I find community for networking and building relationships, what I use for organizing the files, where I organize my metadata, what I use for uh, streaming links to send to supervisors. We talked about project management and tools we use for keeping track of the correspondences with various supervisors or different relationships. What I use for project management, and we've talked about listening sessions, both free and paid pitching services, as well as free ones. Of course, got to plug Control Camp because our listening sessions, our briefs. For the moment, all this stuff is free. I'm a big believer right now in community. I just want to grow the community. My plan is for us to be off of Clubhouse. I'm building a private social network, kind of like a private Facebook group, but it'll be on controlcamp.com, and that's where we'll have briefs and listening sessions and mini conferences and educational opportunities, and everything will be housed there. And so we'll truly have a home, and the majority of it, my intention is for it to, I believe in free education. I believe if we provide free education, the opportunities will be monetizable, meaning that we can make money off of writing songs for particular briefs, or we can collaborate on great opportunities and all types of other stuff. So the future will have that in merch and live events and songwriting camps and lots of cool stuff that will all be coming in 2022 as we launch this new thing. So I hope you're excited about where this future goes. Oh, I do want to shout out. I sometimes don't know how to pronounce your name, and I think you said it before, but I think it's Vuga Music, VUGA. But he did talk about Sync Floor as another service that pitches music. There, he uses them for micro syncs, and he said the same thing as with Song Trader. They're supposed to be an automated connecting like pitching service, but his understanding is that the soups ultimately end up reaching out to someone internally to help them, find what they're looking for. So similar thing to some of the other services that I've been talking about. Um, cool. So look, we're at 10. I don't believe we covered all that in like just a couple of hours. I didn't think I'd be able to fit all that in, but I appreciate all of you for hanging in that time. If you want to stay on our list, click on that link above. You'll get access to the listening sessions, any briefs that I send out. Again, just as a reminder, I did announce I am looking for music tonight for a brief. Do I have that brief still open so I can say it correctly? I'm looking for music that sounds like the rock band Status Quo. Some of their songs, The Wanderer or whatever you want, kind of like the 80s retro UK rock vibe. It doesn't really have to be 80s or UK, but it should be very celebratory kind of a song that could work in a pub, kind of a sing along type vibe. If you've got something like that, if you look up Status Quo and you look up their song The Wanderer or whatever you want, if you've got that kind of vibe, I've got a French film that needs that tonight. So DM me and I'll send you a link to upload directly to my Disco if you've got something like that. All right. Thank you all for hanging in the whole time. It's been a nice crowd tonight.
Hey, Eric,
Hey,
it's
Jen.
totally the 11th hour. Did you want to talk about keeping music safe? We were talking about that in the back channel
Oh, I
about
did tell you to remind me that. I'm glad you did. Wait, remind me what that was again.
oh, just how to keep music safe. You were talking about originally the thought came to mind because you were saying how you stored a lot of stuff
Oh
on
yeah, so how
oh
many?
and
And you asked how many copies do I keep of
yeah, it's like
files and like
where do you
corrupt drives?
diversify? Because I just recently learned, like, my catalog's getting bigger. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to lose this stuff. And now, since I'm doing a lot of my own vocals too, I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, if I lost my sessions. And so I started researching. I was horrified to see that, like, some, like, external hard drives, like, sometimes, like, start corrupting after 5 to 7 years. I'm like, what? And so it's like, what do you do?
I'm so glad you asked this question, Yash. That's a great resource. So let me tell the room real quick what I do, and I don't mind if we take another 5 minutes for somebody who has another system because it's back. I actually did lose a drive, 5 or 6, maybe it was like 7 years ago,
Oh my goodness.
and it was really heartbreaking because I don't think I had it backed up, and so I pretty much just had to start over. I lost a bunch of sessions,
Mm,
and crazy about sync is you think that the stuff that you're working on now, you think it's just for now, but sync is unlike any other thing songs. The songs you work on now can still be synced 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
totally.
Um, because I just got a request for, I mean, now, they're asking for 80 songs now. They're asking for 90s. They're asking for 2000 songs. There's stuff that I tried to pitch in 2000 that didn't land in a library, but I know I can come back now and try to pitch them now. And
Yep.
so being able to keep things backed up, I think, becomes uber critical for our stuff. So what I do now, I have a backup hard drive. I'm on Mac. So Mac has its own backup system that's part of the operating system. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you attach your own external hard drive to it, then Apple has, let me see the name of it. I'm trying to, it's not,
Is it time machine?
yeah, Apple has Time Machine in the operating system that you will do regular backups to to an external hard drive. And because just so I use that, that's my first layer of protection. And then I also use a service called Backblaze, which does a remote backup over the internet of my whole system to Backblaze. So I can back up. So I have two copies now. I have plus I have a bunch of stuff that I also store on Google Drive and out iCloud individually. So I know I have some copies there, but my entire system is backed up through Time Machine to an external hard drive, and then I subscribe to Backblaze, and I pay an annual subscription. I'm not even sure what I pay,
How do you
maybe,
spell
but it
that?
was
Backblades?
Backblaze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was reasonable. I don't think I pay anything crazy, so I don't remember what it was, but I remember at the time thinking that it was reasonable. And so I don't think I do monthly. I think I do like an annual subscription, but that gives me good peace of mind to know that if my main hard drive goes, I have my backup hard drive. I mean, I have one external hard drive that I use that has all my Ableton sessions on, so I don't keep my Ableton sessions on my MacBook hard drive. I have a separate hard drive that I use, that houses all my sessions. But then I have an external hard drive that Time Machine is on, and I have Backblaze, so I feel a lot better if something goes crazy.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Real quick, just if anybody else has a system, a backup system, I do think that's important before we shut down that they want to share. You can raise a hand, come up to the stage, or send a message um, during back chat. Send a message in back channel, and I'll comment. I'm just reading it now. All right, so cool. All right, let's transition to the after party. You have to be following Control Camp. We don't talk music in that room, and anybody can come up on stage. As soon as you come into the room, just raise your hand. I don't pull you up automatically, but if you raise your hand, anybody can come on up, and we'll chat. Just make sure you're following Control Camp by clicking on the little green icon and hitting follow. And if you're not on our mailing list, hit the link that's above my picture to be on the mailing list so you know about listening sessions and everything else. Psychosis, I appreciate you hanging out. Nicole, thanks so much for checking in. Good to see both of y'all.
Hey, another great room, brother. Very informative and helpful.
I want to see y'all in the after party, so come meet us over there. Look for the room in like 32 seconds. Everybody else, have a good night. Thanks so much for hanging in.
Peace.